Hi, folks. A very warm welcome to season 4, episode 7 of the Lemons and Pineapples podcast with me, Emma O'Brien. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about understanding your nervous system and how to use the skill of nervous system regulation to build resilience. I talked in the previous episode about HeartMath. I'm a HeartMath coach. HeartMath is a set of science-backed tools that help with nervous system regulation, emotional regulation, and stress management. But I wanted to talk a bit more about specifically what our nervous systems do and how they work, because I think when we have an understanding of what we're trying to regulate, it's much easier to appreciate and use the tools at hand to be able to do just that. So everybody, all humans, have an autonomic nervous system. This is the bit of our body and our brains and our nervous system that regulates our breathing. It's what keeps you alive without you having to think about it. It regulates your hormone levels. It regulates your heart rate. It regulates digestion and our automatic responses to things that are happening to us. That autonomic nervous system is formed of two parts: our parasympathetic nervous system, which is also known as our rest and digest, which is responsible for digestion and for us being calm, and our sympathetic nervous system, which I think everybody listening to will probably be overly familiar with this. This is where we find that fight or flight response. Now, of course, we do have a freeze response, which happens in the parasympathetic nervous system, which is effectively another defense mechanism. I'm going to talk about that entirely separately in another podcast episode, because what we're talking about when we're using nervous system regulation tools and HeartMath tools is being able to move from sympathetic fight or flight into parasympathetic. So HeartMath is a set of tools that give you access to calm on demand. It allows you to be able to move out of a stressed state on demand, intentionally. I think what happens with chronic stress is people are getting stuck in that fight or flight response because life is overwhelming and we aren't actually equipped with the tools to cope. We're not taught emotional regulation or nervous system regulation as children. I think a lot of people that I coach, people who are in my recalibration program, which I've co-created with Sam Shrosbury, who's a functional medicine health coach, one thing that we are finding in that course is grown-ups in their 40s do not have access to emotional literacy tools. We've had ladies in this course who are very intelligent people who do not have the vocabulary to describe what emotional states they are in because we are not taught. And this is why we're finding people who can't cope with things, because there's so many nuances of anger, which would be a fight response. There's so many nuances of anxiety and worry, which are flight responses. So it's really interesting work, and it's great to know more about it, because when we have these tools, we can change our lives for the better. So we have these two nervous system responses, and our fight or flight response really was geared up and created for when we were living in caves and we had to keep an eye out for lions, tigers, and bears. Unlikely that many of us are keeping an eye out for lions, tigers, and bears unless you're on safari. But what's happening at work is you're keeping an eye out for emails, co-workers, and people you'd like to get away from or avoid. And we finding these nervous systems are constantly on alert for things coming in. You have one email comes in and you deal with it, and then 20 more arrive to fill its place. You're feeling overwhelmed. You want to get away from it all. Somebody says something to you and you have to defend yourself. We're constantly having this stress response activated. And the more it's activated, the more you get stuck in this loop of a stressed out state. So when that nervous system is activated, we have a hormone called cortisol, which is it's a stress hormone. It allows us to stay on the go and keeps us going. It's a real motivational hormone, if you like. But when we're stuck in fight or flight, we've constantly got cortisol surging through our bodies, which means that you will struggle to sleep. You will find your body is sore and inflamed. It's an inflammatory hormone in excess. And it makes going through life pretty difficult when you're in a chronically stressed state all the time. And we want to be able to do ideally is to be able to respond to a stressor, and you're going to get kicked into a mild fight or flight response depending on what the stressor is, and then recover from that stressor and come back into a kind of neutral state, which takes us closer to our rest and digest and a calm state. There is a hormone in the rest and digest side of our nervous system called its abbreviation is the DHEA. I will attempt to say it for you one time and then I'm not going to try again. It's got a very long name. So it's dihydropiandrosterone. Yep. So try saying that after several tequilas. And that is almost the antidote to cortisol. It is a repairing hormone. It's good for our brains. It's an anti-aging hormone. So we want more of that and less cortisol in an ideal world. Our cortisol levels should be at the correct level. Cortisol is the thing that wakes you up in the morning and it peaks and then it should drop off so you can go to sleep at the end of the day. But if you're constantly running and constantly stressed out and activated all the time, that cortisol is just pumping all the time. And we don't have a chance to go into rest and repair. So where does HeartMath come in with this? HeartMath is a system that allows you to retrain your nervous system so that you can recognize when you're going into a stress response and choose another way of being. So stress is generally associated with big negative emotions: anger, frustration, fear, anxiety, jealousy, annoyance, irritability. There's quite a language and there's quite a lot of difference and nuance between those. But essentially, we can all recognize what those are. And they kick your system into a threat response, into defending yourself or running away from something. They're very energizing and they're big feelings. But what happens when we are in that activated state is we are in that kind of alarm state of our brain where we're looking for threats, we need to survive, we're in survival mode. That activates a part of your brain called the amygdala, which is, it's like your alarm system. When we are in that stressed state and we are essentially our thinking processes are being run by an alarm system that's looking for problems all the time, you don't have access to your prefrontal cortex, which is where we have powerful executive functioning, focus, productivity, and good decision making. So anybody who's ever been stuck in a cycle of stressed overthinking, you are in your amygdala. Very few good decisions come from there unless you are in an instinctive, in the moment, actually life or death scenario. Then your amygdala is what you want on board. But when you're at work, at your desk, dealing with emails, we don't want that. We want to have access to our calm, rest and digest state that gives us access to that higher level of thinking, executive functioning, decision making. What HeartMath allows you to do is to train your system to understand what it feels like to be in a calm state. And it gives you control over that stress response. There's a whole set of tools. It's what I teach people in my 6-week nervous system reset. You can find the details about that in the show notes. There are a set of techniques that build on each other. And essentially what they allow you to do is come into presence in your body. They allow you to connect with your heart space rather than your head space. And they allow you to start to influence your heart rhythm. So I also shared in last week's episode that when we are very stressed, our heart rate variability is low. And this is a tool we use to measure what's happening internally. And when we are calm, when we're able to be in a positive frame of mind, our heart rate variability increases and we have smoother, more coherent heart rhythms, which means that all of our systems are in balance, and it means that we have access to higher functioning and higher thinking, which is what we really want. A resilient nervous system is one that is able to move between the two. So you might have a moment where you're stressed and then you can go, oh, I've got my HeartMath tools I can use, and I'm going to intentionally bring myself back into a state of calm, as opposed to being trapped in a state of chronic stress the whole time. You can also train yourself to access calm when there is no stressor happening. And when you're able to do that, you teach your system to know what it feels like to be in coherence, to have that high heart rate variability, and to have all of your internal systems working in harmony, if you like. You can train yourself to be in that state. So whilst there might be stresses that happen, you can pull yourself back from them. And the more resilient you are, the more used you are to being in that calm state, the longer it will take you for your nervous system to be activated anyway. Over time, the more resilient you are, the less affected you will be by stress and the faster you will recover from stressful things. Just because you've learned to be resilient doesn't mean that stresses won't occur, but it allows you to have the control over your response to them. And I think oftentimes when we're chronically stressed, more stressors become a source of anxiety and fear because we're already not coping very well in our chronically stressed state. And what's going to happen if we have 3 more things that are just going to tip us over the edge? When you're able to have the tools that you can have some self-control, you can have some self-regulation, you've got a little bit more choice, automatically you're going to be able to move through the world with more confidence because you know you're not living at the mercy of your emotional responses to the things that are happening to and around you. This is powerful work. It is work I have been doing. It's been a game changer for me. I used to be incredibly reactive, incredibly anxious, incredibly stressed most of the time. If you've listened to the podcast for a while, you'll know that in 2016 I had a massive episode of burnout. And it really did mean having to reevaluate how I lived my life, how I showed up, so as not to continue like that, because one can't function in a state of burnout. It was one of the most awful experiences of my life. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. So HeartMath has been really powerful for me in learning to self-regulate, learning to emotionally regulate, and learning to on-demand regulate that nervous system. So I can recover quicker if something stressful happens. I can, in the moment, think, how might I choose to respond to this thing that's annoyed me slightly? Do I want to just take a moment to calm myself down before I respond to this? So it puts you back in the driving seat of your internal state and puts you back in the driving seat of your emotional state. And it puts you back in the driving seat of your health. So one of the things with chronic stress, it's very annoying in terms of productivity and focus and personal interactions, but it is incredibly bad for your physical body. When you are chronically stressed, your heart rate will be elevated for far longer than your heart is designed to be running at a high heart rate. It causes wear and tear on your heart. It causes cardiovascular problems. This is why people who are chronically stressed have heart attacks, strokes, and hypertension, because we have got this system that is just under strain and never gets access to recovery. So what you're doing when you're moving between your nervous system states, you are allowing your physical body to have some time to recover and for everything to just woosa and access some calm and everything to be in a harmonious state, so your hormones are balanced and your system is in alignment, which is what we want more often than not. So if this has piqued your interest and you'd like to know more, have a look in the show notes at my 6-week nervous system reset. This is a 6-session one-on-one coaching program where I will take you through the HeartMath tools. I will teach you how to access calm on demand. I will teach you how to manage your emotional state. I'll teach you how to self-regulate. And I will teach you really how to be back in the driving seat of stressors. And when you show up with more calm, life flows a bit better. When we're chronically stressed, we do stupid things like firing out emails on a whim because we're angry. We're at the mercy of these big negative emotions which drive our behavior, and it doesn't always drive us to behave well. And if you perpetually behaving out of stress and reacting all the time, it creates more chaos. When you're able to respond rather than reacting, it calms the chaos externally. So I would love to hear from you. You can book a free connection call if you'd like to know more. You can have a look at the 6-week nervous system reset via the show notes. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can also send me a voice note or a DM on Instagram. It's at Emma O'Brien Coach. I will see you in the next episode, folks. Thanks for joining me. Bye for now.